My name is Simone Alexandra Turner. I'm 33 years old, and I'm speaking to you from a corner office in downtown Boston, an office that was supposed to belong to someone else, a legacy that I was never supposed to inherit, and a life that was constructed on the foundation of a conversation I was never meant to hear. If you're listening to this story, I want to request you to please like the video and subscribe to the channel, and please comment where you are listening this from. So, let me start at the beginning. Not my beginning, but theirs. My grandmother, Eleanor Hayes, was one of the most powerful women in Massachusetts, and absolutely no one knew it. She was the founder and silent chair of Hayes Global Ventures, a $400 million enterprise that had revolutionized commercial real estate development, sustainable construction, and urban renewal projects across the entire Northeast. The company had transformed downtown corridors in 7 major cities. It had government partnerships. It had a portfolio that included some of the most iconic buildings in Boston, Philadelphia, and New York. But Eleanor was invisible. She gave no interviews. She attended no press conferences. She didn't do the speaking circuit or the charity gala circuit. The business press had no idea who she was. The few times her name appeared in corporate filings, it was listed as Consultant, Advisory Board, a deliberately anonymous title. This anonymity was intentional and calculated. "Simone, listen to me," she told me when I was 20, sitting in the mahogany study of her Boston brownstone. "Money attracts parasites. Power attracts predators. The women who stay safe are the ones who move through the world invisible. They see everything, they control everything, but nobody can see them." My grandmother was not conventionally beautiful in the way magazines would suggest. She was striking in a way that was harder to categorize. Tall, nearly 5'10", with deep mahogany skin, silver-streaked hair she wore in a sleek bob, and eyes that seemed to contain entire lifetimes of calculation. When she moved with purpose. When she spoke, people listened, even when they didn't know they were listening. She had built Hayes Global from a $30,000 investment and sheer ruthlessness. At 23, fresh from Harvard Business School and rejected by 7 major firms for being overqualified, a word they used when they meant black and female, she had decided to build her own. She partnered with 2 other women, both brilliant in different ways, and they had constructed an empire that now employed over 5,000 people across multiple states. And my mother, Diane Turner, had no idea how wealthy Eleanor really was. My parents, Diane and Michael Turner, lived a comfortable life. They were both professionals. My mother was a pediatrician, my father was a civil engineer. They made good money. We lived in a nice house in Newton, Massachusetts. I went to good schools, but Eleanor lived on another planet entirely. She lived in a 5-story brownstone in Beacon Hill that was worth $8 million. She had homes in Cape Cod and Maine. She drove a car most people would never see the inside of, but she never, ever mentioned money. "Money is like a predator," she told me once, watching me study hard for an economics exam when I was 16. "The moment it smells your fear or your greed, it devours you. The smart thing is to stop sweating around it. Make money, manage money, but never love it. Never let it become your identity." I was raised in 2 worlds, the comfortable middle-class world of my parents' home, where I was expected to be grateful for private school tuition and summer camps, and the rarefied world of Eleanor's study, where I learned about bond markets and commercial real estate and the art of appearing harmless while being absolutely lethal. Eleanor sent me to Wellesley College. She paid for it anonymously, letting my parents think I had received a full scholarship. I majored in business administration with a minor in urban planning, studying the very industries my grandmother controlled. After college, I took a job in an urban development firm in Boston. It was not Eleanor's firm. She wanted me to build my own foundation, make my own mistakes, develop my own relationships. She wanted me to be independent, not just financially, but in all the ways that mattered. Your mother, Diane, said one afternoon, the two of us sitting in her study with tea and books around us, will try to make you small. She will do it because she believes that small is safe, small is unloved, small is controllable. But I am going to teach you to be infinite. I believed her. I trusted her. I was building my own career, my own life. I was independent. I was happy. And then I met Thomas. I met Thomas Caldwell at a networking event in Boston. He was working for a private equity firm, or so he said. He was handsome in that carefully constructed way, tailored suit, expensive watch, the kind of confidence that comes from never being told no. We talked for 3 hours. He was charming. He asked thoughtful questions about urban development. He seemed impressed with my ideas. He seemed genuinely interested in me. I haven't met a woman like you before, he said, and I believed him because I wanted to believe him. We started dating. It was intoxicating. He took me to restaurants where the wine list required interpretation. He knew people. He knew things. He seemed to exist at a level of society I had been sheltered from, even with Eleanor in my life. 3 months into dating, he proposed. I don't want to waste time, he said, down on one knee in a private room at a restaurant, a diamond ring catching the candlelight. I know you're the one. I said yes. My parents were delighted. My mother cried. My father shook Thomas's hand firmly. Eleanor was quiet. She took me to lunch, just the two of us, in a small cafe in Back Bay. Tell me about his family, she said, stirring her coffee. I told her what I knew. His father was a banker. His mother was from old money. He had a sister. They lived in Connecticut. Do you know what his net worth is? Eleanor asked. That's a weird question, I said. It's not a weird question. It's the only question that matters, Simone. Before you marry someone, you need to know how much debt they're carrying, both financial and emotional. Do you know what your fiancé is worth? I didn't. He seemed wealthy. He spent money freely. He dressed well. That seemed like enough. Before the wedding, Eleanor said, I am going to have someone look into him. I want to know his credit score, his debt, his history. Will you allow that? I almost said no. It felt intrusive. It felt paranoid. But I said yes. 2 days later, Eleanor called me to her house. Thomas Caldwell, she said, handing me a folder, is drowning in debt. He has $450,000 in unsecured loans. He has been sued twice by investors. He has never maintained a stable job for more than 2 years. He is, in financial terms, a liability with a good haircut. I read the report, my stomach sinking. There's more, Eleanor said. He has a pattern. He targets women. Wealthy women, women he perceives as vulnerable or inexperienced. I should have ended it right then. I should have listened to my grandmother who had never steered me wrong. But Thomas called that evening as if he sensed something was wrong. His voice was warm and apologetic for things I hadn't even told him yet. Your grandmother had me investigated, didn't she? I was shocked. How did you know? Because I would do the same thing, he said. I don't blame her. But Simone, what she found was the worst parts of me at my worst time. I've been working with a financial advisor. I've been turning things around. I'm not going to lie to you. I've made mistakes. But I love you, and I want to build something real with you. It was a perfect answer. Too perfect. But I was in love, and love makes you stupid. I married him anyway. The wedding was beautiful. Eleanor paid for it anonymously through her lawyer. My mother thought we were having a modest wedding and spending our own money. In reality, the whole thing cost $200,000, and Eleanor paid for every penny while I let my parents believe we were being responsible. Thomas and I bought a house in Cambridge, a beautiful Victorian-era home with exposed brick and tall windows, and a garden. The down payment came from money my parents gave us. The rest was financed through a mortgage. But here's what I didn't know. Thomas had lied about his income to qualify for the loan. He had inflated his numbers. We were living in a house we couldn't actually afford, and I didn't realize it for months. The first time I noticed something was wrong was when we got the credit card bill. We had spent $45,000 in 3 months. On what? I scrolled through the itemized list. Restaurants, clubs, designer clothing, trips. Thomas, I said carefully, we need to talk about spending. We can afford it, he said dismissively. Stop worrying so much. You sound like your mother. But we couldn't afford it. I knew we couldn't afford it because I was trained in financial analysis. I understood debt-to-income ratios and debt ceilings and the mathematics of impending collapse. Over the next months, the situation deteriorated. Thomas didn't want me to work. He wanted me home. He wanted me managing his schedule, organizing his life, being the person behind the scenes who made sure everything functioned smoothly. Your career isn't necessary, he said once, and I was so shocked I didn't even respond. My income is more than enough. I want you to focus on us, on being happy. I quit my job. Within weeks, I realized my mistake. Thomas became controlling in small ways at first. What I wore, who I saw, how I spent my time. He wanted access to my passwords. He wanted to monitor my phone. I'm not controlling, he said when I objected. I'm protective. I love you, and I don't want you getting hurt. But it didn't feel like love. It felt like slowly losing oxygen. Then, one evening, I overheard him on the phone. He was in the study with the door partially closed, and he didn't know I was in the hallway. She has potential, he was saying. Her grandmother is loaded. I'm talking 9 figures. But the old woman is smart. She's not going to hand anything over easily. I froze. No, Diane doesn't know the extent of it. She thinks her mother is comfortable. She has no idea. My mother? He was talking about my mother. The plan is to get Simone to convince her mother that we need financial help, something about the house or a business venture. Once Diane buys in, once she feels like she's invested in us, we move to the next phase. Next phase? Yeah, I know it's a long game, but when it pays off big. I didn't breathe. I didn't move. I just stood there in the hallway of the house we couldn't afford, listening to my husband, the man I had married for love, plot to steal from my family. I went to Eleanor that night. I told her everything I had heard. I told her that Thomas was not who he claimed to be. I told her about the financial instability, the surveillance, the control. Eleanor listened without interrupting. When I finished, she was quiet for a long time. I want you to do something, she said finally. Go home. Act normal. Act like you didn't hear anything. But trust me, Eleanor said, we're going to need to document this. We're going to need to build a case. The moment you confront him, he'll change his behavior. He'll hide things. We need to catch him completely unawares. Eleanor, I can't stay with him. Yes, you can, Eleanor said, and her voice was steel. For a little while, we need evidence. We need to know exactly what he's planning. We need to know who he's working with. That night, I did something I had never done before. I set up a hidden recording device in the study. I bought it online using a fake email address. I hid it in a decorative box on a shelf. And then I waited. The recordings started immediately. Recording 1, Thursday, 8:14 p.m. Yeah, I told her we need to invest in my business venture, real estate development. I told her I need $200,000 to get into a partnership deal that will pay off big. She's thinking about it. She's going to ask her mother for help. Good. How much do you think the grandmother will give? If it's framed right, probably the whole thing. The old woman is smart, but she's not going to let her granddaughter suffer. Recording 2, Monday, 9:30 p.m. We had an argument today about spending. She wanted to cut up the credit card. I told her that kind of thinking is why women never make real money. I told her she needs me to be supportive, not a financial burden. She backed down immediately. Is she suspicious? Not at all. She's too guilty. She thinks everything is her fault. It's easy. Recording 3, Wednesday, 11:45 p.m. I found out the house is in her name only. Her parents co-signed the mortgage, but the deed is in her name. Once we've softened her up, once we've isolated her from her family, we'll tell her we need to refinance. We can take out a home equity line of credit, pull out $150,000, use that to pay down my other debts, and she'll be on the hook for the entire property. I saved every recording. I uploaded them to an encrypted cloud server, and I backed them up on a hard drive that I hid inside a hollowed-out cookbook in the kitchen. Then I called Eleanor. I have what we need, I told her. Send it to me. And Simone, it's time to move forward. We're going to end this. Eleanor introduced me to her lawyer, a woman named Victoria Morse, who was sharp, brilliant, and had the kind of predatory grace that reminded me of Eleanor herself. Let's be clear about what's happening, Victoria said, sitting across from me in her office in a glass tower in downtown Boston. She had listened to 3 of the recordings. Your husband is attempting to commit fraud. He's manipulating you into becoming a tool to steal from your family, and he's doing it with calculated deliberation. What do? I asked. First, Victoria said, we need to protect your assets. We're going to file for a legal separation. We're going to make sure the house is secure. We're going to move money into protected accounts. He'll realize I know. Good, let him. The moment we file, the law is on your side. We'll get a temporary restraining order, and we'll use the recordings as evidence of his intent to defraud. But before we filed anything, Eleanor had one more idea. I want to know who else is involved, she said. We were sitting in her study, and she looked older than I had ever seen her, not because she was aging, but because she was angry. This man didn't come up with this alone. There's someone behind him, someone smarter. She hired a private investigator, a woman named Sarah Chen, who had apparently worked for federal law enforcement before going private. Sarah traced Thomas's communications. She looked into his banking records. She talked to his colleagues. What she found was worse than we thought. Thomas wasn't working alone. He had a partner, a woman named Veronica, who specialized in targeting wealthy families. The 2 of them had done this before, twice before, and both times they had gotten away with it. The first victim was a woman in Philadelphia, older, divorced, lonely. They had extracted $500,000 from her before disappearing. The second victim was a woman in New York. She had been wealthier and more aware, but they had still managed to steal $350,000 before she caught on and quietly paid them off to avoid scandal. I was supposed to be the third. But you're not going to be, Sarah said, handing me a thick folder of evidence, because you caught him first. I filed for legal separation on a Monday. Victoria served Thomas at his office. His reaction was exactly what Victoria had predicted. He came home furious. He denied everything. He tried to gaslight me, to make me doubt what I had heard. You're listening to old recordings, he said. Things I said when I was stressed. Things I didn't mean. You meant them, I said, and my voice was steady. Every word. You've been poisoned against me, he said. Your grandmother, she's filled your head with paranoid ideas. We were happy until she got involved. We were never happy, I said. I was just asleep. He tried to convince me that we could work it out. He tried to convince me he would change. He tried to make himself seem smaller, more pitiful, more capable of redemption. But I had Eleanor's voice in my head. Never sign anything when your heart is shaking. My heart was still, my hands were steady, and I was prepared to tear him apart if I had to. Thomas fought the separation viciously. He claimed I was the one who had mismanaged finances. He claimed the house should be split 50-50. He claimed he was the real victim, that I was a cold, calculating woman who never loved him and was using my powerful grandmother to destroy him. Victoria took the recordings to court. The judge listened to them without expression. When they finished, she looked at Thomas with a kind of contempt that seemed to physically shrink him. "Mr. Caldwell," the judge said, "this court finds that you entered into marriage under fraudulent pretenses with the intent to defraud the defendant's family. You have confessed, on audio, to deliberate financial manipulation. You are entitled to marital assets. You are entitled to nothing." She awarded me the house, the car, full custody of our liquid assets, and then she issued a restraining order. Thomas was ordered to stay 500 feet away from me, my workplace, and my family members' homes. If he violated it, he would face jail time. He appealed. His lawyer claimed the recordings were inadmissible, that I had recorded him without his consent, that it was entrapment. But Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. I was a party to the marriage. I had the legal right to record him. The appeal was denied. Thomas was forced to sign an agreement transferring his interest in the house, signing away his claims to any shared property, and accepting a financial settlement of $50,000, money I paid him despite him deserving nothing, just to end it quickly. He took the money. He vanished. I later heard he had moved to Florida and was already targeting another woman, but that was his problem, not mine anymore. When Thomas left, I thought the nightmare was over. I was wrong. 3 weeks after the final separation agreement was signed, Eleanor called me to her study. She looked grave in a way I had never seen. "Simone," she said, "I need to tell you something. I'm sick." The world tilted. "How sick?" I asked. "Very sick," Eleanor said. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. The doctors are giving me 6 months to a year." I didn't cry. I couldn't cry. Eleanor was the strongest person I had ever known, and the idea that something could take her down seemed cosmically wrong. "I'm going to spend my remaining time setting things in order," Eleanor said, "and I'm going to tell you what I should have told you a long time ago." She told me about Hayes Global Ventures. She told me about the $400 million company, the real estate empire, the government contracts, the employees, the legacy, and she told me that she was leaving it all to me. "Your mother," Eleanor said, "is a good woman, but she doesn't understand business. She doesn't understand power. I am leaving her money, more than she could spend in a lifetime, but I am leaving the company to you." I was speechless. "When I die," Eleanor continued, "you will become the CEO of one of the most significant real estate development firms in the Northeast. You are the only person I trust to carry this forward." Over the next months, Eleanor worked with her lawyers and her board members to transition control. She brought me into meetings. She taught me the intricacies of her empire. She showed me how she had built this world and how to maintain it. And then, on a cold November morning, she died. The news broke on a Tuesday. Eleanor Hayes, 28, dead. But the obituary contained more than that. The business media, sensing a vacuum at the top of Hayes, dug into the company's history, and suddenly Eleanor's 30-year invisibility meant nothing. The story exploded across every business news outlet. Billionaire power broker, the hidden empire of Eleanor Hayes, the woman behind the Northeast real estate boom. Eleanor Hayes, one of America's most powerful women, was unknown until her death. My name appeared in every article. Simone Turner, 33, granddaughter, newly appointed CEO of Hayes Global Ventures, inherited $1.2 billion in assets. $1.2 billion. The number was abstract, unreal, like Monopoly money. The phone started ringing immediately. Relatives I didn't know existed suddenly cared deeply about my well-being. Friends from high school reached out saying they had always believed in me. Old acquaintances from college contacted me through LinkedIn, asking about collaboration opportunities. And then Thomas called. He had found a number, I don't know how. He called my new office. "Simone," he said, his voice warm in a way that made my skin crawl. "I saw the news. We need to talk. I made a mistake. I was stupid. I was desperate. But I love you, and I think we could work things out." I hung up. I added him to a blocked list. I filed a report with the police. But the damage of his re-entry, even in this small way, made me realize something. I needed to be more than just wealthy. I needed to be powerful in a way that made me untouchable. Eleanor had taught me that. Invisible wealth, calculated power. I took over Hayes Global Ventures and immediately made changes. I restructured the company to prioritize workers over profits. I increased wages. I created better benefits. I pushed the company to focus on sustainable development and community-centered projects. The company's value didn't decrease, it increased. Within 2 years, Hayes Global was worth $1.8 billion. I was 25 years old and controlled nearly $2 billion in assets and construction contracts. But I learned from Eleanor. I never mentioned it. I never boasted. I dressed simply. I drove a practical car. I lived in the Cambridge house I had bought with Thomas, but I renovated it carefully, beautifully, for myself, not to impress anyone. I became the kind of woman who had power that no one could see until they tried to cross her. And Thomas, like a man without instincts, tried to cross me. 2 years after Eleanor's death, after our restraining order had expired, Thomas reached out again. He had figured out that I was significantly wealthier than he had imagined. He wanted to reconcile. He wanted to talk things through. He wanted to apologize properly. My new lawyer, a woman named Carla Washington, who reported directly to me, advised me to ignore him completely. "Silence is power," Carla said, in cases like this. "Let him wonder what you're thinking. Let him imagine what you might do. Make him afraid of his own thoughts." So I said nothing. I blocked his calls. I had security intercept any letters. I made him understand, through inaction, that he did not exist in my world anymore. He eventually gave up. The last I heard, he had been charged with fraud in connection with a woman he was targeting in Rhode Island. His pattern had finally caught up with him. Justice doesn't always look like prison time. Sometimes it looks like a man who destroys himself because he can't accept that he has no power over you. I'm now 33 years old. I run Hayes Global Ventures, which is now valued at $2.1 billion and employs nearly 8,000 people. The company has transformed neighborhoods in 8 states. We have government partnerships and private contracts with some of the largest corporations in the world. I'm on the board of 5 major organizations. I've been featured in business magazines as one of the most influential women in the real estate industry. But most people don't know this. The companies I own are structured through holding companies and LLCs. My name doesn't appear on the press releases or the corporate literature. I have become the thing Eleanor was, a woman with power that moves through the world invisible. I'm not married. I have no plans to be married. I have lovers occasionally, but I choose them carefully. I have no children. I have built a kingdom and I am the undisputed queen of it. And I did it not by accumulating wealth, but by understanding that wealth is just a tool. Real power is the ability to choose who deserves your time and who doesn't. If you're listening to this, and you're in a situation like I was, if someone is slowly convincing you that you're less than what you are, if someone is slowly stealing your agency, if someone is positioning themselves to steal from you, I want you to know something. You do not need their love. You think you do. You think that if you just try harder, if you just understand them better, if you just love them more, they will become the person you want them to be. They won't. People don't change because you love them. They change because they want to change. And if someone has shown you that they are willing to lie to you, to manipulate you, to steal from you, they have shown you all you need to know. The kindest thing you can do for yourself is to leave. And when you do, don't look back. Don't accept apologies. Don't believe promises. Don't imagine that they've changed. Just keep your eyes forward and your hands on the steering wheel and drive toward a life that belongs to you. Eleanor taught me something that saved my life. Never sign when your heart is shaking. That applies to more than legal documents. That applies to relationships. That applies to the promises you make to people who don't deserve your promises. If someone makes your heart shake, put the pen down, step away from the table, walk away from the agreement. Only commit to people and things and situations that keep your heart still and your hands steady. Eleanor's final gift to me wasn't just the company and the money, it was a lesson about what matters. In her will, she left me a single personal item, a leather journal. It was filled with her handwriting, decades of observations, strategy notes, lessons she had learned. One entry, dated just days before she died, read, "Simone will inherit money, but money is not the inheritance I want her to carry. I want her to inherit this, the knowledge that a woman alone is more powerful than a woman trying to please someone else. That a woman with boundaries is more valuable than a woman who has surrendered her boundaries for peace. That a woman who chooses herself always is a woman who will never be poor." I have that journal. I read it sometimes. And every time I read it, I understand more deeply that what Eleanor left me was not a company. She left me myself. The women who change the world are never the ones seeking approval from it. They are the ones who decided somewhere along the way that their own approval was enough. Build that approval in yourself first. Make yourself safe. Make yourself whole. Make yourself the kind of woman who doesn't need anyone to survive. And then, if someone wants to share your life, you can say yes from a position of absolute power, not desperation. That is the only way love works. That is the only way freedom works.